pop-ups of native habitat is always great. And we had one person who was really enthusiastic about California milkweed, and he had his own little side hobby where he grew them on his own. So we actually pulled those into the project as well. And we were seeing monarchs coming to the site pretty much a month or so after we planted everything. Next slide. So to wrap things up, it really is a big collaboration between everyone. They call it an integrated design team. And we really did what we could to reach out to the local community on social media to get them engaged with the project as well and understand what they would be looking for as a local project or a site that they could be going to. We really need to pull in the human health and well-being component of it. And that's another whole section of sites that you can focus on as well, where it's mental health restoration, social connection for people, and then again, just promoting equitable site use for everybody. And so these are the partners that we worked with, a few other sites APs on the project as well. I know that is a very brief overview of everything. So if you have any questions of how you can incorporate it into an existing project or one that maybe you've already completed some components of it and you've already completed the construction, we can help you figure out if you can still be eligible to get the certification. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Anisha. And for everyone joining, if you do have questions for any of our presenters during their presentations, we're gonna have all 4 presentations happen one after each other, but just put your questions in the chat, and then during the Q&A, I think we're going to run over a little bit after noon, so hopefully you can all hang in with us, and I'll call on you to ask your question to the presenter. So now we're moving on to Ellen. Let me get up your slideshow. All right.
There we go.
All right, take it away, Ellen.
Okay. Good morning. I'm here to speak to you about a small project on MWD property. I'm a senior ecologist with Metropolitan Water District, and this project occurred as I was simply in the right place at the right time and able to ask, why don't we use stormwater? Next. The location is the Joseph Jensen filtration plant in Granada Hills in the North San Fernando Valley. Next. Sorry for the quality of this slide, of this picture, but stormwater flows freely through the back entrance from Balboa Boulevard and San Fernando Road. I don't know if you can see it, but you can barely see just the crown of the road in the lower left. The rest of this is stormwater, and it's stranded this Prius. It's on both sides of the road, by the way. A 25-foot wide entrance road frequently fills curb to curb as water funnels through our gate across our parking lot and then drops into Bull Creek and LA River tributary. Sediment load in the stormwater is very high. Next. A partner agency needed mitigation for their pipeline project on our property, but our goals included redesign landscape at our back gate on the construction area, draw off some of the stormwater from San Fernando Road, create a stormwater park designed to reduce maintenance, treat and infiltrate this stormwater, and create a native plant demonstration area watered with stormwater. Next. I'm sorry I can't use my arrow for this. Native plantings want winter water to flourish, so the marriage of the two concepts is ideal. The partner agency funded the design, grading, and blocks, while Metropolitan supplied the pavers, gravel, and vendor board.
Hey,
I'm sorry, what's going on?
no, I'm just watching a web thing.
I don't think we're taking questions right now.
I
I don't think we're taking questions now.
Everyone, please remain
So
mute and then hold.
The way it works out is, you know, there's 4 control zones.
Can we remain quiet, please? Excuse me, can you please stop speaking? Excuse me, can you please stop speaking?
Basically, it's going to impact roughly half of controller A area.
Rick, can you hold your questions till later, please? I'm speaking.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, so I get that minute back. Thank you. Okay, here's San Fernando Road, and the back entrance is in yellow. Our project area is in the orange to the left of the purple area and between the two arrows. Next. We worked closely with the project engineers to design a landscape that worked but was easy to maintain. We edited the engineering diagrams and eventually, due to circumstances beyond our control, altered the overall design to a smaller project. So we cut off the lower right, left-hand side of it below the bar, the red bar. I'll get back to that later. Next. Cut curbs, and this is them cutting the curb, which is very exciting. Next. And trench drains convey water from the back entrance to the sumps. Next. 2 sediment sumps, 6 and 8 feet across, detain stormwater to reduce sediment load. The sumps fill with water and spill out into the swales. Next. Gravel pavers line the swales and sumps and allow stormwater to infiltrate and irrigate plants as well as to percolate to groundwater. The easy to roll out pavers have a bottom membrane that's filled with native soil. Next. That's positioned above 3-inch layer of 1 3/4 inch gravel. Next. Now, graded and paved swales conduct water throughout the site. Next. Check dams in the hollyhock swale detain stormwater for greater infiltration and to irrigate native plantings and provide the winter water they want. I had no control over what the construction crew called labels of the portions of the project, but this was the hollyhock swale. Next. An overflow weir was a last-minute addition, so stormwater would not create a flood in the middle of the site, but would overflow and exit when necessary. And you can see it was frequently necessary. This represents 2 storm events. It's the portion that goes north to south on the slide. Next. In spite of winter water, we still needed supplemental water for establishment and for new plantings, as some plants die and are replaced. Next. We used 2 species of native plants to keep the design simple using ground covers and subshrubs. Security personnel need to quickly survey the area, so plant selections had to be low-growing species. So we chose, next, desert hollyhock, Sphaerosia ambigua, which is why they call it the hollyhock swale. And next, different species, different cultivars, ground cover cultivars of Ceanothus. Next. 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 Stormwater projects sometimes fail during maintenance. These projects are generally innovative and maintenance staff may not know how to care for these landscapes. We designed this project for easy maintenance. Trench drains have top grills that allow light penetration and make the space less attractive to rodents seeking a dark, cozy tunnel. Removable grills allow easy sweeping to remove sediment buildup during and after storms. The sumps have square bottoms that can be easily maintained with a square shovel. Next. Sweeping the swales removes winter annual weed seedlings without pesticides. Swales are hardened with pavers, so sweeping with a broom removes debris but preserves the slope and cross section. Next. Bender board separates landscape mulch and keeps it from being blown into the swale. Next. The exiting pipe has a 1/2-inch grill on each end to prevent rodents from building a nest and creating an obstruction in a dark, cozy tunnel. Next. We learned a few things during the project. First, work closely with engineers during design and remain focused on easy maintenance. Participate with the contractors and construction supervisor at tailgate meetings because you'll repeatedly have to explain what the project is about. Check in with the construction site frequently, otherwise changes will be made which can increase costs with redos. This had to be regraded 3 times. I'm sorry you can't see all the photos underneath, but they literally had some of the swales going up and over mounds. I had to explain to them water doesn't generally go uphill. and that the way this swale is graded, it's going to sheet across the site rather than staying in the V-shaped swale. The third time they were very upset with me, but at least we got the project done correctly. Next. We want to thank our partners at the gas company at CWE that were the design engineers, and with Metropolitan engineers that were on site who got pretty excited about the project. Next. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Ellen. We're now moving on to John Selden with the City of LA. Let me pull up this one. Just a moment.
Yeah, if you can go up to the top page, Clara Sophia, please. Thank you. Awesome. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So good morning, everybody. We'd like to present our poster on the Albion Riverside Park project. And my name is John Saldine with the Bureau of Engineering, City of Los Angeles. And I will try to present this project real quickly in about 6 minutes or 5 minutes. I'll do my best. It's a very cool project. Clara Sophia, can you page down to page 8? I have an overview, plan view, and these are some of my slides. Thank you. And if you could zoom out so we could see that entire page. Yeah, that's fine. Let's see, there we go. So that is I'd like to just start with our site view just for a minute and indicate that the project is located in the city of Los Angeles, north of downtown, right alongside the Los Angeles River. This is a very old section of town. It's in Lincoln Heights. And what we did basically is we combined a stormwater pollution project with excuse me, with a recreation and park project. So we had a nexus with our funding to do not only stormwater improvement, but also park improvements. And if you look on if you can zoom in maybe just a little bit, just from an overall perspective, on the right-hand side is Albion Street. There's a storm drain, about a 50-inch storm drain going down Albion Street that discharges into the Los Angeles River. And what we did on this project is we diverted the stormwater from that storm drain into the park. The storm water goes through a drop structure, goes through some actuated valves, through pre-treatment CDS units, and ultimately discharges into underground infiltration galleries that infiltrate the groundwater. From a big perspective, that's what the project is. And in addition, on top of the underground infiltration galleries, we have park improvements. On the bottom, we have soccer fields, and on the top, we have a rebuilt baseball field. And if you could go back to the top, Clara Sophia. So I have about 6 slides. Let me page through. So here's the actual poster. And what I'm going to ask Clara Sophia is if you can zoom in, maybe on that upper left-hand quadrant of the poster.
Yep.
Good. So that's just a aerial view. The project is on the bottom of that photo, and downtown LA and Chinatown are on the top. LA River goes through the middle. And this paging down, that is simply our abstract. I won't read the abstract right now, but basically, as I discussed, that's what we have. What was the project accomplishment? Going down, if you could zoom in on the bottom 3 slides a little bit. So just some of the elements of the project includes bioswales on the left. That collects runoff from the park itself and discharges into the underground galleries as well. A permeable pavement also in that middle photo in the parking areas, also assists with stormwater treatment, and some of the recreational elements on the right-hand slide. So if you could pan over, Claris, and just the timeline, it was a challenging project going back to 11 years ago when it began purchasing the site, and completion last year. Total budget is about 22 million. And if you could pan up, let's pan up. Let's try going up a little more. One more. These are some of the constraints on the site that we worked with, including very large trunk line sewers going right through the site. The green line on the top is a trunk line sewer that caused some issues during construction. It's also an 18-inch sewer. There's also a substantial amount of contaminated soil that was remediated and removed during construction. And if you could pan over to the right, Clara Sophia. So just some of the results. 16,000 tons of contaminated soil were removed. 60 tons of asbestos-containing materials were removed from the site. Water quality, watershed acreage is 300 acres. Diversion of stormwater, 27.5 CFS. The volume of the underground infiltration galleries, 5 acre-feet, and with a 40% reduction of zinc. And annual treated volume of stormwater, about 4.4 million cubic feet. If you could pan down. Yeah, that's it. That's just a repeat of the final design showing the stormwater improvements underground. And that's about good. If you could page down to the next page. These are just some of the credits for the project. And just real quickly, we have City of LA participation, Bureau of Engineering. And if you could just keep paging down. Architectural division within the Bureau of Engineering, landscape architecture. And keep going down, please. As well as the Bureau of Sanitation, partnership with our Bureau of Sanitation and Inspection Bureau, Recreation and Parks Department. And then going down to our consultants, Tetra Tech was civil design, Arcadis, construction management, Solly Miller was our contractor. And let's go ahead and just page down. And I just have a lot of project facts. I'm not going to read them, but they are there if anybody is interested in the project facts. Let's go ahead and go on down. Yeah, just the funding, some of the elements of the project, and we're about done. And then stormwater, I've already mentioned the stormwater. So I think that's about it. Is that the last page? Oh, okay. And if you could page down, I just have two slides. And if you could zoom out a little bit. So these are some poster boards that we had prepared during the project period. Just real quick. I have some construction progress. If you go down just a little bit, construction photos on there, including the old industrial site, grading, pumping concrete for the infiltration galleries, themselves, and some of the play equipment, baseball field and soccer fields. Maybe one more page down, I think, or is that it? Yeah, these are some elements. I won't go through this either. These are the same elements that we've discussed. And that is my presentation on Albion Riverside Park project.
Great. Thank you so much, John.
Okay, Clara Sophia, thank you.
I'm going to stop sharing, and Nate, if you're able to share, you can go ahead. Great.
All right. Can you see that, Clara Sophia?
Yes. We're good to go.
Okay, great. Thank you. So this is the Merced Avenue Greenway project presentation. I'm Nate Schreiner. I'm a civil engineer with Tetra Tech. And this is a follow-up presentation to one that was done at the Symposium last month by James Powell from Alta. And in that presentation, he focused on the landscaping along the corridor that was designed as part of the project. And this project will focus on the BMPs that were designed along the corridor as part of this project. Okay, so there was a few NGOs involved with this project, along with the city of South Almonte and then Alta and us as the designers. But the Council for Watershed Health really spearheaded this project, and they obtained the grant which funded the design for this project. And so this slide here is a rendering of what the final project will look like. You can see it's really a multi-benefit project, more of maybe a complete street project because it includes active transportation elements, pedestrian and sidewalk improvements, as well as safety improvements along the corridor, and vegetative plantings along the whole corridor too. But underlying all of this, which you can't see here in the rendering, is the stormwater BMPs, which I'll get into next. So on this slide, you see a bunch of information, and it's kind of hard to decipher of all of it. You also see it's very colorful. And so basically, the more colors you see on this slide, the better, because all of these colors represent stormwater BMPs. And this is not unique to this specific area of the street, but these BMPs were implemented along the whole street, and I'll be getting into each of them individually next. So starting with the permeable pavers that were implemented. They're about 3 feet wide adjacent to the curb, and they were underlain with a permeable gravel material. And then in the middle of that were these milk crate style storage chambers. And in addition to the permeable pavers, we also implemented bioretention areas. And so this is a cross section of what one of these bioretention areas look like. You can see it's right adjacent to the curb line and where those permeable pavers are. And the bioretention areas basically include the planter, but beneath that, we have a permeable soil material, a permeable gravel, and then also these milk crate storage chambers as well. And then the third type of BMP we implemented were these high infiltration media biofiltration areas. And these are very similar to the bioretention areas, only they included much more permeable media. So these high infiltration areas basically acted like a sieve. So once the stormwater reaches these areas, the stormwater is basically just sucked into the ground and infiltrated. And with these 3 types of BMPs, we were able to capture the entire 85th percentile storm event along this street. It came out to about 2.9 acre feet. And for those of you who have designed Green Street projects, you know that capturing the 85th percentile storm event is no easy task, and it's quite a feat. So, it was only through the implementation of a combination of different BMPs that we were able to do that. And then finally, all of these planter areas where the bioretention basins were planted so that these plants can draw from that captured stormwater as well and benefit from that. So what are the benefits from this type of Green Street project? Well, the first one is it improves water quality. And in this case, the project is located in the upper Los Angeles River watershed. The city of South El Monte is also part of the upper Los Angeles River watershed management group. And so this project addresses goals of the Enhanced Watershed Management Program, or EWIMP, for this watershed as well. And then by the plants being able to draw from the stormwater, they're able to benefit as well and grow a fuller canopy, which helps reduce urban heat island effect. So that's the third benefit there. And then the last one is, was intended to be a pilot project by the Council for Watershed Health, and it's intended to be scalable so that they can basically take this project and implement it on streets throughout the Southern California area and scale it up or down to fit those streets and be able to capture the 85th percentile storm event in a neighborhood near you. And with that, that concludes my presentation, and I want to thank you, and I'll turn it back over to Clara Sophia.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Nate. Well, that concludes our 4 presentations. So we will move into about 10 or so minutes of Q&A if everyone's able to stick around for that. So if you have any questions, pose them in the chat box and I can call on you to ask the question directly to the panelists. But right now, not seeing any questions yet, I will just open it up to, do any of the poster presenters have some questions for each other that came up when you were watching each other present? You can just feel free to unmute yourself if you do.
I just put a question, Clara Sophia. I don't know if you can see it.
Go for it.
Oh, okay. Question for Nate. No, I was super curious how like the specific street got chosen and why. What kind of criteria do you look for?
Yeah, this particular street, so it's really interesting because this particular street, the northern half is very industrial and the southern half is very residential. So you have these two very unique land uses. And because it was, city of South El Monte was initially a very industrial city, the whole corridor is very wide and it's not heavily utilized either by traffic. So we had a lot of space to work with to not only implement these BMPs, but also to implement the active transportation bikeways that you saw and the sidewalk elements as well. So that was really, I think, the driver for why this neighborhood or street was selected, just because there was so much space to implement all these elements.
Great. Thank you. Are there any other questions from either the participants or any of our poster presenters for each other?
Clara Sophia, I have a question, and that's just, it's simply, these are going to be available for us to review because these projects are really intriguing and so exciting. I just wanted to be able to bring them back and show others.
Definitely. Yeah, we're recording all of the breakout rooms. So especially for if you were just in this room and didn't get to see all the other great presentations in the other rooms, we're recording them. And then hopefully, you know, with the permission of our presenters, we will also share the materials after this event as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm curious, you know, I live off of a median, it's on Culver Boulevard. I know there's a big stormwater capture project farther down in Culver City. But I also, because this place has sort of historically been a gathering place for, you know, day workers. It's also attracted a lot of, now obviously because of the pandemic, homeless people who we coexist with. I mean, we kind of know the neighborhood. But I just wondered, in the planning of these kinds of super expensive projects, how people are being considered in the configuration of these kinds of projects, because it seems like, you know, there's these immediate needs of community members and not necessarily being, you know, taken into consideration? I just wondered what, I'm just not familiar, so I was curious.
Definitely. Do any of our presenters can jump in and answer this. I'm particularly thinking of the Merced Avenue project, though, given there was a great deal of engagement, and I know, Nate, you know, that wasn't maybe necessarily solely on your plate. It was a group effort, but if you want to speak to that, that could be great, or any of our other presenters too.
Yeah, I can take a stab at it. It's definitely a complicated issue. I think with the canopy that's being added along the street, it definitely makes it a more comfortable environment for not only the people who live in houses along the neighborhood, but maybe people also along the street. I know with active transportation projects, they encourage activity in these areas. And I think some of these that activity I think has a tendency maybe to displace some of maybe loitering in those areas because they're more heavily frequented. So I think there is an effect that these types of projects have on those different types of activities, but it's definitely a complicated situation.
I mean, I guess I'm not really thinking about these community members as, well, as just purely negative. I mean, I'm also wondering how, what considerations are, if there's also ways that people have engaged because of these things that, you know, that as people perhaps settle in these areas, that then there's ways that people can help to shepherd them to other areas where they can live, or other resources. I don't know. I guess I'm curious because I face this in my own neighborhood with this kind of space. And it seems like, you know, obviously I care about water, you know, and these kinds of things, but there's this other piece of these issues just juxtaposed next to each other. So I'm just curious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the outreach was a significant component of this project. And I didn't get into it much, but it was kind of a unique outreach effort because they didn't just have like town hall style meetings, but they also went out and along the street and held events where people could come and kind of ride bikes along the corridor. It was sort of these active participation outreach events, which was kind of unique. And it was fairly successful with this project. So I see those outreach events as especially the ones held along the street, as opportunities maybe for those people to come and express their concerns or desires for such a project. So I would think something like that would be a good opportunity for these members of our community to participate and voice their concerns as well, so that these projects can cater to them as well.
Thank you.
I just wanted to address something else. Is not directly answering your question, but the project that I worked on was really small. It was not super expensive. I think it was less than $30,000. It was very low tech, deliberately so that it could be very low maintenance. So it was not complicated. And I'm going to make a plea for lots, rather than having these larger, very complicated, and you're right, very expensive projects, having a number of smaller projects diffused over a larger area can accomplish the same thing that the larger projects do. It's just that the stormwater is concentrating into these smaller areas, so they have to put in larger projects. If people were going for smaller projects and siphoning off stormwater all over the watershed, there wouldn't be a need for these larger, more expensive projects, because that's what LA used to be. It used to be stormwater falling on soil, infiltrating in, trying to get back to that scenario where individuals on their properties, where you have the most control, can infiltrate stormwater from your roof. That can be pretty low tech, very inexpensive. Check your soil, of course, check your slope. But yeah, I would argue for smaller, less involved, lots of those diffused over a larger area, so that these really complicated large projects don't need to be funded. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ellen.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
brings me back to Anisha's presentation as well of the photo that Brian actually commented on of people digging the bioswale just with shovels. And that's kind of an incredible model of what we could hopefully implement in multiple places in small ways. So thanks for sharing that photo with us.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of to both of their points, yeah, with the underground storage basin, obviously that was a more expensive portion of the project tied to the building and everything, but the big portion of sites is also low costs and, you know, realistic maintenance for these low budget projects. So you can be repeating these, and like Ellen said, having more small ones throughout the watershed, which actually has a really big impact on everything too. But then tied to the community side, you know, I can say for us, for our outreach, you know, this project was a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, it's more was spread on who is involved with different groups within the communities. I don't know how far, I wasn't super involved with the outreach portion, so I don't know how far it really expanded to outside of social media. But again, that's limiting who's going to be able to get involved with it if you're only, you know, putting things out on Facebook or other sources like that. But a big portion of it, and what we had at our project, which I didn't really get into, was having different components to bring the community together and have everything address different types of needs that people have. So we had a community garden that everyone was allowed to access. There was a tea room that we actually got from some students from the architecture department that they had built it for some project. We reused it for our site, so it was a nice little sitting area for people who wanted to have some space on their own. We had a lending library that people could go and use, and the whole portion of it is really bringing people in to actually use the site and understand what's going on with the project, and really incorporating what we can with the community.
Great. Well, as you'll see, we are all being ushered back into the main session, but I know there's a lot more great conversation to be had, and so I really look forward to hopefully more events like this, and again, we'll be sharing everything from our great presenters, hopefully to keep the conversation going.
Hey.
All right, I'll see you all in the main session.
Anisha, let's talk.
Thank you.